They thought she was someone's mother, a helper, a placeholder on the program. But the moment her fingers touched the piano, time stopped, and the maestro who dismissed her would never forget her name again. The recital hall shimmered with expectation. Inside the historic Boston Conservatory, a quiet hum of conversation floated beneath glittering chandeliers. Young musicians, dressed in black satin and pressed tuxedos, adjusted their posture, their cuffs, their confidence. It was the night of the winter recital, a community showcase where the city's elite and hopeful gathered under one roof. In the midst of the nervous brilliance, Evelyn Ross, 62, stood quietly by the wall, her soft cotton blouse and long skirt making her almost invisible in the room full of polish and flair. Her gray-streaked hair was pinned neatly, her posture reserved. She held a slim music folder against her chest like a shield. No one greeted her. No one asked her name. She passed two young performers, a girl with glittering shoes and a boy practicing arpeggios with dramatic flair. One whispered, "Maybe she's someone's grandmother," without a hint of malice. Just casual dismissal. Evelyn offered a polite smile and moved toward the corner of the room, settling into a folding chair near the stage wings. Her fingers rested quietly on her lap. But inside her chest, a slow, patient rhythm beat, steady and familiar. The rhythm of years spent in the quiet of a library, of nights playing piano by herself, of dreams tucked carefully away as life demanded practicality. That's when the doors opened and Maestro Lucien Varga arrived. The energy in the room shifted instantly. Conversations cut off mid-sentence. People straightened. Phones disappeared. He was tall, angular, with silver hair and an unmistakable aura of control. The renowned pianist and conductor, now 67, wore his acclaim like a cloak. He surveyed the room with practiced calculation, offering only the briefest nods to the eager crowd. He shook hands with the director, exchanged brisk comments with the string quartet, then turned toward the waiting performers. Nina, the soft-spoken, junior organizer, stepped forward. "Maestro Varga, this is Evelyn Ross. She's closing out the program tonight." Lucien barely glanced at her. "Ah," he said. "Yes. Very good," and then walked past her without another word. Nina gave Evelyn an apologetic smile. Evelyn nodded. She expected nothing more. Behind the scenes, final preparations unfolded. Young performers checked their placement. A trio rehearsed their page turns one last time. The concertmaster tuned the Steinway Grand until it sang Evelyn. Remained quiet. Still. A few feet away, a conservatory student whispered to her friend, "She's the last slot? Guess they're ending with something light." Another chuckled. "Maybe a simple hymn or lullaby." They weren't being cruel, just confident. Evelyn said nothing. She had no dazzling resume, no stage presence. She wasn't here to be discovered. She was here because Nina had once overheard her play an old upright in the library's community room and, without knowing anything else, had asked if she'd like to close a small recital. Evelyn had said yes, then regretted it for weeks. But now, with the concert just minutes away, she wasn't thinking about fear. She was thinking about music and how it felt to let it pour through her like breath. She was thinking about the piece she'd chosen, a melody she knew by heart, not because someone taught it to her, but because she'd lived with it for years. As the performers began, applause and polite critique followed in equal measure. Maestro Varga offered an occasional nod or a sharp, quiet word to the conductor beside him. He praised technicality, corrected phrasing, raised an eyebrow when showmanship eclipsed subtlety. But when Evelyn's name appeared on the final page of the program, he gave no visible reaction, just a glance at the clock. The audience had begun to shift in their seats, anticipating the end. The lights dimmed. The final performer stepped forward. A woman no one noticed. Not yet. The concert unfolded like a well-rehearsed ballet. One by one, the young musicians took their place at the Steinway. Fingers flew, brows furrowed with practiced intensity, the music polished and precise. Applause followed each piece, appreciative, if restrained. Maestro Varga, perched in the center of the front row, gave occasional nods. Once he even clapped 3 measured times. That, in itself, caused a ripple of excitement among the organizers. From her chair backstage, Evelyn Ross watched each performance with quiet attention. She offered a soft smile now and then, particularly to the more nervous players. In her lap rested a weathered score, Clair de Lune, pages curled at the corners from years of quiet companionship. She didn't hold it for reference. She didn't need to. She held it the way one holds a memory, a promise kept only to oneself. 2 students leaned toward each other near the refreshment table. "She's playing Clair de Lune?" "Original," one said, voice dipped in sarcasm. "Next she'll pull out for Elise." Their laughter was hushed, but not invisible. Evelyn heard it, and said nothing. As the final young performer exited the stage to warm applause, the MC stepped forward. And now, closing out this evening's recital, Ms. Evelyn Ross. The name was unfamiliar. The room was still polite, but unmistakably finished. Bags were gathered, programs folded. Maestro Varga sighed audibly, checked his watch. Behind him, a few audience members subtly rose to stretch, or lean toward the doors. No one expected much. Some assumed a soft landing closer, a kind gesture to a community volunteer or an elderly patron. It was a common recital pattern, open with strength, close with grace. Evelyn rose from her seat. Slowly, on stage, she walked with careful dignity. Her shoes were plain, her back straight. She gave a small nod toward the judges' row and approached the piano, not with ceremony, but with quiet reverence, like someone greeting an old friend. She sat, adjusted the bench slightly, then again, and once more. There was a faint audible sigh from someone in the 4th row. Evelyn looked up, offered a gentle apology. "Forgive me, I'm a little rusty." A soft wave of laughter flickered through a corner of the audience. Not cruel, just confident. Confident that this would be forgettable. Maestro Varga leaned to his assistant. "Let's hope this won't take long." Evelyn closed her eyes. She placed her fingers on the keys. No one knew, not yet, that the moment was already beginning to shift. Evelyn's hands hovered over the keys for just a second longer than expected, a pause so intentional, so quiet, that it tugged gently at the air. Then the music began. The opening notes of Clair de Lune spilled softly into the hall. Not loud, not grand, but alive. Each phrase seemed to unfold with purpose, not to impress, not to prove, but to tell. At first, no one reacted. But slowly, conversation stilled. A student's water bottle, mid-sip, was quietly lowered. A parent paused, reaching for their coat. Even Maestro Varga, mid-note on his notepad, stopped. His head lifted, his brow furrowed, not in irritation, but surprise. He hadn't expected that voicing, that phrasing, the restraint, the control, the depth. The piece was familiar, too familiar perhaps, often played, often imitated. But this version wasn't copied, it was lived. Evelyn's touch on the keys was feather-light and impossibly steady. Her left hand barely moved, yet shaped entire landscapes of harmony beneath the melody. The right hand floated, sometimes barely pressing, down, letting notes breathe, letting silence do its work. There was something in the timing, the way she lingered just long enough on certain notes, as if remembering something, as if she had once loved and lost within those very bars. A young student leaned forward, mesmerized. The hall, once fidgety, now sat still as stone. No one checked their phones. No one whispered. Even the chandeliers seemed quieter. Maestro Varga leaned back in his seat, eyes narrowed, listening like a man hearing his native tongue for the first time in years, and still Evelyn played. Without flourish, without drama. Just her and the music, as if the piece had finally found the hands it had been waiting for. Evelyn's hands moved like breath itself, not fast, not flashy, but so achingly precise in emotion that it didn't matter if every note landed in perfect time. This was no contest, no audition. This was confession. As she reached the climax of Clair de Lune, the music swelled not in volume, but in feeling, a quiet crescendo that carried years of solitude, pages read in silence, windows watched through rainy mornings, laughter. With her daughter, grief buried under library shelves, and it was all there, laid bare in those last measures. Maestro Varga's breath caught. His hand, once lazily flipping pages, now clutched the armrest. He leaned forward, then stood, slowly, unconsciously, drawn to the stage by something he could neither name nor resist. Evelyn's fingers struck the final note, letting it fade like a secret you finally decide to let go. Then, nothing. No coughs, no shifting seats, only a sacred silence that hung in the air like mist, and then a single clap, then another, until the entire hall erupted. Not the perfunctory applause reserved for politeness. This was real, loud, messy, raw. People were on their feet. A young man wiped his eyes. An elderly woman near the back clutched her chest, whispering, "My God." Evelyn blinked as, if awakening from a dream she hadn't realized she was sharing, and then Maestro Varga stepped forward. For the first time all evening, he looked utterly human. "Miss Ross," he said, voice low, reverent. He hesitated, then added, "Where have you been all my life?" The hall quieted again, not out of tension, but out of awe. Evelyn simply smiled. She hadn't gone anywhere. They just hadn't been listening. As the applause softened into murmurs of disbelief, Evelyn slowly rose from the piano bench, unsure of what to do with the sudden weight of every eye in the room. Maestro Varga approached the stage, still visibly moved. He didn't offer a handshake. Instead, he placed a hand over his heart and bowed, deeply. "You've performed before, yes?" he asked gently, as if hoping for an answer he already assumed. Evelyn shook her head with a small smile. "No, not like this. I've never performed publicly before. Music was always—" She paused, searching. "A friend I kept to myself." There was no pride in her voice, just honesty, and in that moment, the room understood. This performance hadn't been ambition. It had been invitation to glimpse a life that had been quietly beautiful all along. Varga turned to the crowd, still stunned into reverence. He cleared his throat, then announced, "If Miss Ross is willing, I would like to offer her a guest seat on my upcoming tour." Gasps rippled across the recital hall. The maestro continued, "Not as a formality, as an equal. If," he said, turning back to Evelyn, "you'll grace us with just one more performance." Evelyn hesitated, unsure of how to process what was happening, then nodded gently. "I suppose, if you don't mind a few rusty fingers," she said softly. The audience chuckled warmly, no longer at her but with her. And then something remarkable happened. The same students who had earlier whispered dismissively now gathered around her. One leaned in nervously. "Miss Ross, what did you think about my phrasing during my set?" Another added, "Can you show me how you colored that second movement? I've never heard it played like that." Evelyn looked at them, these bright, eager faces, and something flickered in her eyes. Maybe she hadn't missed her chance. Maybe it had simply taken this long for the world to hear her properly, and now they were listening. Evelyn Ross didn't walk into that recital hall to prove anything. She didn't chase a spotlight or applause or the approval of critics. She came to honor something quiet, something sacred, a lifelong love that had waited patiently in the still corners of her life. And when she played, she reminded everyone in that room of something we too often forget. That greatness isn't loud. It doesn't wear glitter. It doesn't beg to be seen. Greatness lives in the honest moments, in the courage to share your gift, even when no one expects it, because true talent doesn't fade with time. It deepens, and sometimes the most extraordinary voices come from the most unexpected places. Have you ever been overlooked because you didn't fit the mold? Because you weren't loud enough, young enough, polished enough? Evelyn's story reminds us true brilliance doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it waits, patiently, behind humility. Share this with someone who needs to remember that it's never too late to shine. Hit subscribe for more powerful stories like this, and tell us in the comments, where are you watching from today?